All right, welcome back to another episode of Making Monsters. I'm Taylor Dahl. You know Lester. He's joining me today to talk some Bears Vikings. I have Tyler Forness that covers the Vikings coming up after this. And so a lot of good stuff to chat, Lester. The Bears are 6-3. I'm not sure how many people would have had that record at this point, and especially starting 0-2 after that mark. So let's start with that, just overall feelings of how you feel about this team right now, especially offensively, because I think that's the biggest storyline.
Yeah, I just think they're in a really good place. I mean, we knew it would take a little time for Ben Johnson and to get his system in place, and but they're still working through the offense, right? But the culture's there, right? I mean, we see it every time they show those locker room clips. We see how they play on the field. It's a very aggressive run game now with what they did when they switched after the bye. They're starting to see their identity. The culture of this team is starting to form now, and that's almost as important as the scheme coming over, right? With the new offense is getting things right. Because look, the Eberflus era was so bad. I can't think of one positive that came out of that entire era. Well, I guess except you get the number 1 overall pick for Caleb, but
yeah,
that was just such a mess. I mean, everyone knew that was going to be bad. They knew keeping him one more year would be terrible, and last year was such a wash. So seeing how quickly they've kind of taken to Ben Johnson, I think it's been fantastic.
Yeah, and even that, I think that going back to that number 1 pick that got us Caleb, you're even thanking Lovie Smith and the Texans more than you are
exactly.
Pat Eberflus for that. Let's talk about that run game a little bit, because it really has, night and day from the beginning, let's say first 4 or 5 weeks compared to what we've seen. What do you think the biggest factor in that is? Offensive line, just, Monangai using him more. What do you think really has led to this run game getting going?
Yeah, I think they just kind of made more of a commitment to it, one. And I think they kind of realized, some of the stuff they're doing with Swift wasn't the best fit for him. We have seen some more outside zone stuff with Swift, which is what, we kind of figure we see more. You mentioned Monangai. They're more comfortable with him now, obviously. I mean, he had a huge game a couple weeks ago when Swift was out. It's just, and of course, the O-line, it takes time. I mean, you pretty much had all new guys. I mean, these 5 guys never played with each other. Yeah, they had training camp and preseason, but it takes time to gel. And I think it just took these guys a little while to get used to each other, getting used to how the guy next year are going to play, how it feels on a combo block before when it's time to go to the second level. You can't just jump into an O-line and know how that works. You got to get used to it. And that takes time. And, I think the bye, I know a lot of fans thought, oh man, the bye so early, it sucks. But I think it was a perfect time. I mean, it gave the franchise time to kind of reevaluate where they were as a team, go back and do some self-scouting. They realized what they had to do. And then look, man, this run game has been really, really fun to watch these last few weeks.
Yeah, it's funny. I was one of those people that hated the week 5 bye in the beginning, and then it came and I was like, okay, I think we kind of need this. And honestly, I may be bummed if we were hitting the bye right now. With the way things feel like they're flowing and the momentum going, and you feel like you're talking about the energy and the culture that you feel changing. I feel like I might be kind of upset if we're like, dang, we have to take a break right now. Like, this is the point where we have to do that. Granted, you may want to get some healthy some guys healthy and give them a week right now, but I don't know if this 1 week is factoring that in. One thing I've noticed, Lester, is the injury reports every single week when we get them on Wednesday are a mile long.
Yeah.
Feels like that may be a Ben Johnson thing, not pushing guys and not risking further injury, not letting anything like that happen and giving them that Wednesday to rest. And then we see it kind of clear up as the week goes. Have you noticed that too?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I had kind of the same thought. I mean, you kind of watch what they've done. Obviously, early in the year, there wasn't a lot, but, now we're, the year's halfway through. There's a lot of bumps and bruises, a lot of guys that kind of get dinged up in the game. And I think this is just Ben Johnson being smart. I know some guys are listed as, no participation because of rest, like a veteran rest day, like Grady Jarrett and Joe Tooney. But other guys, I think they're kind of getting the same thing. Like, I'm not sure. DJ Moore, I'm not sure that shoulder is as bad as it's to keep him out. Roma Dunze is listed on there. So I think they're kind of realizing, okay, these guys got dinged up. Let's just shut them down for at least one day. And then I think today they'll all be, or on Thursday, they'll all be limited. And then by the time Friday comes, full, good to go. And then let's go out there and kick Minnesota's butt.
Yeah, I say give Joe Tooney whatever rest day he wants at this point in time. He deserves it. All right, let's talk about some of the offensive pieces. We've talked about the weapons and how many there are and how different each week has looked. Fantasy owners hate the Bears because you never know week to week who's going to have the ball and what that's going to look like. But the one thing I think most people agree on at this point in time, Lester, is more Luther Burden, less Zacchaeus. Yes, are you on that train also?
Yeah, I think it's just a point of they trusted Zacchaeus, right? Because he's a veteran. He came in, he's been in the league for a while. Luther Burden missed a bunch of time in camp with the injury. He had a really slow start to his season. I just think it was a trust factor. Maybe they didn't think he had the offense quite as grasped. But if you look at his snap counts, right, each week Luther Burden's counts going up a little bit. Of course, he had that hiccup there when he missed the game, but other than that, his snap counts going up. And I mean, when you look at just pure explosiveness, pure talent from that receiving core, he may be the most explosive athlete there. I like DJ Moore, what he brings to the table, but Luther Burden, man, he has another gear sometimes. So I think they want him to be a bigger part of this offense. It's just a matter of when they trust giving him more of those reps. And I think it's coming up pretty close here.
Yeah, there was one of the plays this last week where when he caught the ball and then just the extra yardage he gets, he's just pushing linemen extra, 3-4 extra yards. And that's something we talk about. DJ Moore is good with those yak yards too. That was one of the conversations we had when the Bears first got DJ Moore. Is the year before, they were one of the worst when it comes to those yards after a catch. And then with DJ Moore, that's what he brought immediately. I think Luther Burden adds even more to that. And I think we've only even saw like the tip of the iceberg of what Luther Burden could be in this offense too.
Well, they kind of, I forget who shared it, but they showed those yards per route run, those charts, and Luther Burden's among the league leaders. So yeah, I mean, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's making something happen. So it's I can't wait to see more of him, and can't wait to see how Ben Johnson incorporates more touches for him in the offense.
What do the Bears do against a Brian Flores defense? Because it felt like if you would have asked me how many times that Caleb Williams got sacked week 1 against Minnesota, I would have said 5 or 6 times. Going back and looking, it was only twice. It felt like a lot more because of what Brian Flores can create in other situations of just getting Caleb Williams uncomfortable. And I think that's going to be the conversation. But it's funny because you talk about other quarterbacks and that uncomfortable is like, let's get him out of the pocket and make him start doing things. Brian Flores, I feel like, is going to do the opposite. He's going to say, let's keep Caleb Williams in the pocket and make him play in structure and complete some of those throws and beat us that way. So it'll be interesting to see that. But what do you think that the Bears can do offensively to kind of counter what a Flores defense can do?
Yeah, I think even last year, Caleb was pretty good versus the blitz. I know against the Flores last year, he had pretty good numbers. Week 1, he was pretty good against the blitz. So yeah, I think they are going to come after him, but I think they're going to come after him. They're not going to come after him quite as much as you would think they would. I know they're going to do a lot of blitzing, but I think they're going to want to contain him. They're going to want to keep him in the pocket. Because we've seen the last few weeks when he gets outside those pockets, that Houdini thing kicks in. You think you got him and he's out. And, the Bears have been dropping some of those. I mean, they all haven't been hitting, but the fact that he's able to kind of get out there and kind of make plays, that stresses the defense a lot. So you may see more of a containment rush where they want to keep him in the pocket. They want to make him step up and try and throw over those big defensive tackles. So I think that may be part of what we see here, but I'm okay with that because I think Caleb's pretty good in the pocket too. It's just a matter of, I think we're watching something we had not seen in Chicago in, forever. We're watching a young ascending quarterback actually get better each week. We see the flashes, and, we kind of saw it with Justin, we kind of saw it with Mitch, but, it really does feel different this time because, he came in with a much higher pedigree, and we're seeing the growth with him, and he's got Ben Johnson. I mean, to me, that pairing is just so critical to this franchise going forward.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that automatically make you feel like this is different. And the big one, I think, is those explosive plays. The Bears have the most explosive big plays in the NFL, and that's just something we haven't seen in a while. The explosive plays you had with Justin Fields were Justin Fields kind of just running around until he broke loose and would get 20 yards and a touchdown. And like, that's that. But you're getting the explosive plays in so many ways. Yes, sometimes it is Caleb using his legs, but sometimes it's Caleb, whatever the case, hitting whoever deep down the field. Sometimes it's someone breaking a tackle like Colston did against that with the win at the end of the fourth quarter a few weeks ago. And so I do think that the explosivity, however you say that word, is different things, and I think that's what's a positive part of this. I also saw the stat too when it comes to yards. I want to say it was like yards per game or whatever, and the Bears have been 25th or worse for the past since 2017, and this year they're third. And it's wild to see some of those things. So it doesn't feel fake to me. The schedule coming up, Lester, gets tougher, and that's where you can really prove yourself, and the Bears can really prove themselves, because obviously the Vikings, the Lions, Packers twice, you've got the Eagles, you've got the Niners. So there's a tough schedule coming up that you can really kind of quiet some people who have been critical of maybe it's just they're doing this against an easy schedule.
Top 10 offense. I mean, at this point in the season, I mean, this is what you want to see. And then, like you said, it's getting better each week. And yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, it's a tough defense, tough schedule coming up. But, a lot of times you'll see these things happen. It's all being done with smoke and mirrors. It's not sustainable, but, it's a run game, right? Everything Ben Johnson wants to do is built on being able to run the ball. He can run the ball. So, that helps him do a lot of stuff he wants to do off that. Last year, Caleb wasn't the best at his deep ball. We're still not seeing a ton of deep shots, but we are seeing him push the ball way downfield. Like, the explosive he's getting isn't like with the Patriots and Drake May. He's just chucking up bombs, right? And his guys are going to make really big plays from downfield. That's not really what the Bears are doing, but the Bears are using like the deep middle. They're pushing the ball downfield. They're really stressing the seams of a defense. So they're getting their explosives that way. Which is fine, because it helps the run game, and then it helps the intermediate passing game. Each week we're kind of seeing this offense level up, and eventually they'll start catching these passes, and they'll have even more explosives going on here.
Yeah, especially if they can do it for 4 quarters. Right now, we're pretty much seeing that kind of scripted first 15 look really good, and then the fourth quarter look good, and we get a gap of, okay, can we figure something out offensively? So if they really get those things rolling, I think it's good. And Caleb, somebody asked him the question yesterday, I believe it was yesterday in the presser, where they said, like, why, you have these last 5 minutes of games that are incredible and you're doing all of these good things. Why have you not been able to put that together for a full game? And Caleb pretty much said, well, like, as the game goes on, you get more comfortable with what the defenses are doing. You see different looks, you see different disguises, you start to understand. So I think he's pretty much saying, like, be a little patient, because you're figuring, like, the more he has these reps, the quicker he's going to be able to kind of figure some of those things out, especially with this new offense. And I know we're now 10 in week 10, but I still think it's a very intricate offense, that there's a lot of moving pieces and everybody's still figuring some things out. But let's flip to the defensive side of the ball. That's been, oddly enough, the problem. I don't know if that would have been my answer preseason, but you still know Jalen Johnson, still know Kyler. We got a little bit of hope that these guys can return this season. We don't know when or if or how healthy, what that looks like. But the secondary, it's been a struggle without them, and it's very obvious. But you do add CJ Gardner-Johnson, and immediately you see some impact from him in ways, more so getting to the quarterback and using him to blitz and do some of those things. We've seen multiple sacks from him in 2 games, which has been really fun. Montez Sweat seems like he's kind of on the up in what he's been able to do. Austin Booker has brought a little bit of a spark. Still probably not the pass rush we'd hope for, but Lester, do you feel like we can get a little bit something in a little bit more in the second half from this group?
Yeah, I think that you mentioned the key thing is the injuries. I mean, TJ Edwards, he doesn't really put up these eye-popping numbers as far as, what he does out there, but he's a smart player. He runs the middle of that defense. Him moving to the mic really helped what they want to do here. I think Kyler Gordon, when he returns, it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens here, because he's obviously been your nickel back, but CJ Gardner-Johnson's on the team now, who that's where he plays. He also can play some safety for you, but you're not going to put him at safety. So do you put Kyler Gordon on the outside? I mean, he has done that in the past. He even did that a little bit this year in the past, earlier this season. So that's something that he can do. I think that's probably your best bet. I mean, we'll kind of have to see what they do. They could just play a bunch of dime. and just go with it. Just put those DBs out there, because they're just, those are your more talented defensive players. Kyler Gordon deserves to be on the field somehow, some way. So get him out there. You mentioned Austin Booker. He had the sack, obviously, his first game in. Last week he had no sacks, but I think he had like 4 or 5 pressures. I think he had 4 quarterback hits. So he is impacting the game in other ways. And, he may not be the prototypical Dennis Allen, tough set the edge, defensive end here, but he looks bigger than he did as a rookie. I think he's kind of growing into his body. He was so young when he was drafted, right? He was a redshirt sophomore. So I think he came in the league at like 20, 21 years old. So he'll only get better. And he had worked on his pass rush moves quite a bit. I mean, his preseason was phenomenal, right? It wasn't just, the speed. It was, he had the long arm, but he was working moves off the long arm. We saw the spin. So, again, Booker is one of those young players in the team that you just want to watch when he plays, because he's a flurry, right? He's all over the place. He's hustles. He's active all over that field. And then Sweat, 5.5 sacks he's up to now. He looks like the player the Bears paid, which what you need to have happen here.
Yeah.
You need something inside. I know Dexter's been playing pretty good, but Grady Jarrett's kind of been
underwhelming.
Underwhelming, yeah, to say the least. I was trying to think of a nice, polite word to say here. I mean, not the best signing so far, but maybe as the season goes on, as the defense all starts to come together, maybe we'll see the best out of him to finish up the year. Do you see them
using last week? We saw a little bit more out of Chris Williams. Do you see them maybe mixing him in a little bit more than we had seen previously?
Yeah, I noticed Chris Williams, he's a defensive tackle by trade, but I noticed that last week he was playing off the edge a little bit. So I think with all the injuries they had there, of course, they are going on injury reserve. Maybe they just realized, they also lost the rookie Shamar Turner, who was playing defensive end. So maybe they just need to play some bodies there. And look, Williams has got, again, we talk about the Dennis Allen prototype. He likes his bigger defensive ends. I mean, that certainly fits the bill with Chris Williams. So, yeah, I mean, if he can give you some reps out there to give Booker and Sweat a blow, and you're not losing too much, I think that's a good problem to have.
All right, Lester, final one. How do the Bears win this game this weekend against the Vikings?
I think it comes down to the quarterback play. I think Caleb obviously is going to do Caleb stuff. Like the last few weeks has been phenomenal. He's got to be smart, with the ball, which he has been. I think JJ McCarthy, his best stretch of football was that week 1 game against the Bears. Like the second half, he kind of led them back. Since then, obviously he had the injury. He's been kind of mad. I mean, really just, he's been okay. He's had some moments, but that's what you expect out of a young quarterback. I mean, I know a lot of Bears fans want to, dunk on what he has going on over there, but, this is his first year playing. He missed all of last year as a young quarterback. I think he's a very talented prospect, but, you got to contain him. He's very good with his feet. He's going to run the ball, look to get out there. So it's going to be kind of, I think, similar to what the Vikings are going to do to Caleb. You want to keep JJ McCarthy in the pocket, make him beat you with his arm. I don't want to see a lot of blitzing this week. I think they may be more better off just kind of dropping Severin, because that's a really good receiving core. And just, you got to hope Booker comes through. We hope Sweat comes through. Hope Grady Jarrett kind of has a throwback game and does something on the inside. So, keep JJ in the pocket. And I think if they can do that, I think they can win this game.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how Dennis Allen handles this, because week 1, there was no Jordan Addison, obviously. So you were able to limit Justin Jefferson. I think he only had like 44 yards, and I believe Aaron Jones had 44 yards, or they were very similar. So when you talk about those were the leading pass catchers in that game, but now you do have Jordan Addison back. Naylor has really come out. He had his career game last week. And obviously when you talk about tight ends, that's a whole other conversation. So they do have a lot of people a lot of guys that the Bears have to worry about being able to catch the ball. But to your point, if JJ McCarthy can't get them the ball or isn't getting them the ball accurately, that I think is the kind of recipe for a win.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I think the Vikings, like if they're able to really establish the run, which they have a couple good tailbacks there, I mean, and the Bears have obviously struggled in that area. So if they just really run the ball and just play bully ball against the Bears front, that's going to be a problem. But, if they can contain the run a little bit and keep JJ in the pocket and kind of make him beat you, I think they got a good chance here.
All right, Lester. Well, I appreciate you taking a little break out of your work day to chat with me. Hopefully we're talking about another win next week. Let's keep it rolling. 7-3 Bears sounds really fun.
I like it.
All right. Thank you. We'll chat later. All right, we're going to continue on this Bears versus Vikings matchup. Number 2 of this season, obviously kicking off the season against the Vikings. And now down the road, we're looking at 2 teams, a very competitive division. Tyler, I think both of us felt it could be that when we talked week 1 of, the potential of how the NFC North could look. And it's a battle. Everybody is in it. And so that's something that I think is part of the conversation. But thanks again for hopping on. I feel like I've had you on a million times and it's always awesome.
No, I appreciate it. It's always good joining you, Taylor. And you're right. This division is weird. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's incredibly competitive and it's also very stupid. So I'm excited to kind of dive into the why.
Yeah, I think so too. And when you look at it, because you go and you're like, okay, well, the Vikings beat the Bears right away. And then you see the Packers beat the Lions, but then the Lions dominate the Bears. And then you're trying to figure out what's going on. And then you go on and you're watching the Packers lose to the Browns and the Panthers. And you're like, what exactly is happening in this football season? And so there's a lot to analyze with that. But let's start with, I think, one of the bigger talking points right now for Minnesota is going to be JJ McCarthy. He ended up, he wound up on the injury report this week with a hand injury. I've seen some tweets of the play of where it looks like that hand injury happened. But talk a little bit about that. And then aside from that, healthy JJ McCarthy, what you've seen that you like, what you think needs to improve still.
Yeah, JJ McCarthy's wild. And he's in this unfair place where everybody just thinks he's about to enter game 27. This will be his 5th start.
Yeah.
He's essentially a rookie that got to sit and learn a lot of the little things, nuance mechanically, and learn like how to game plan, how to study, that kind of thing. But you still have to apply it on the field. And we're seeing that it's just a little bit of a transition for him. When he's got all of his bearings together and he gets his feet underneath him, he's really, really good. The problem is you get that about 2 to 3 drives a game, and the rest of them are very sporadic and wild. He's like a kid back in high school that would drink 3 Monsters. And when you first start hanging out with that kid, he's pretty calm. But then by the end of that 3rd Monster, he's just bouncing off the walls and he's just going bonkers. That's JJ McCarthy right now. He gets himself too amped up. And he needs to calm down. He needs that chill pill, because when he does have the chill pill, you can see everything in between the ears is working really well. He's going through his progressions. He's finding the right guy. He's making the right decisions, but mechanically it is not caught up to him. And that's not going to change throughout the course of the year. It may get slightly better, but we have to remember he didn't have an entire off season to work on the mechanical stuff that they really needed in. I remember when Tim Tebow came out of the draft, because I'm a big Florida Gator fan. They talked about how he was trying to shorten his arm motion, and they kept drilling on ESPN. It takes about 10,000 reps to make it muscle memory. That's where we're at with JJ McCarthy right now. He needs those 10,000 reps. He has not gotten them yet. And that's not to say he won't get it. I think he's going to figure it out. But when we see him throw on the move and he's just sailing Justin Jefferson, that stuff's going to get fixed. And to me, I think a lot of national people are missing the forest for the trees, because look, covering nationally is very difficult. You have to be in tune with 32 teams.
Yeah.
That's hard to do. Procedurally, when you watch how he has to operate this offense, he's changing plays to the line of scrimmage. He's flipping plays. He's calling protections. He's doing a lot of the little things. And in the first 2 games, they were slow. Yeah. The last 2 games that JJ McCarthy started, they were up at the line of scrimmage with like 15 to 20 seconds left. They were calling things out. They were adjusting. And a lot of the little nuances that Kevin O'Connell has, it's a difficult offense to operate, because you have to have some things with timing and precision, like when to snap the ball on at a certain point in motion. And that ruined a 3rd down that they had against the Ravens because they snapped it too late. So those little things, he's slowly getting there. But in between the years, he's got it. Yeah. Now he just has to apply everything else with that and sync it together. And that's been the most difficult challenge. And I'm very confident that's why you're not seeing a consistent product on Sundays.
Let me ask you, because you obviously you cover the draft too, so you're close with a lot of these prospects when they're coming into the NFL, or follow along and are very aware of who they are and what they are on the field. Did JJ McCarthy have that getting too antsy thing at Michigan also?
I don't think he did.
Okay.
When you look at what he was at Michigan, he didn't play 7 fourth quarters out of the 15 games in his final year of college. Yeah. Why? Michigan killed everybody.
Just one.
He didn't have to play. Yeah. But the big issue I had with him is almost everything you had was a small sample size.
Mm-hmm.
And those small sample size creates extra variables. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all going to turn bad, but when you have a variable, it creates a more difficult equation to solve. And with McCarthy, he just had very few high leverage situations. He was really good on those high leverage downs, like third and intermediate. He was great.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the whole package, it's a smaller consistency when it comes to the data set. And I had concerns about that because it's like, okay, if let's say he just half of it goes right, half of it goes wrong. Is it going to be the catastrophic half? Like,
yeah.
I had concerns about it. I had a second round grade on him, but I had no problem taking him high because it's a super high upside bet. And if that hits, it doesn't matter where you take a quarterback. If you hit on that guy, you're a genius. It's really that simple in the NFL. So if the Vikings can get those things out of him, I think it'll be great. I think he gets himself too amped up just because he's like, I'm playing in the NFL and I want to do great. And
he's a competitor.
He has all this pressure on him. He's been known to meditate in front of the goalpost before games. I think he needs to do more of that. Maybe he needs to meditate at halftime. I don't know. But he needs to find a way to calm down.
So let's talk about some of the other weapons. Obviously, when you talk about the receiving game, week 1, Jordan Addison was not playing. So the Bears pretty much just kind of felt like they had to take care of Justin Jefferson and figure it out from there. So Justin Jefferson had 44 yards in that game. Aaron Jones had 44 yards in that game. And that was the 2 receiving leaders. I'm guessing this is going to look a lot different, but how has that receiving room been? And we're talking about some of those things with JJ McCarthy, but in general, some of that, the syncness that needs to happen between the receivers or the pass catchers in general and JJ.
Well, you could tell that there was some frustration from Justin Jefferson on Sunday. He was targeted 12 times. He caught 4 passes. And some of that was the referees. He thought that there should have been a couple of pass interference calls that did not come his way. And there were some inaccuracies just in general from JJ McCarthy because he's still trying to figure some of that stuff out. Addison also had 11 targets and he had 3 catches. It was not a banner day for McCarthy as far as trying to throw the ball accurately. But what we do have is you have 2 bona fide number ones. Jordan Addison is in that Devonta Smith tier, where if they were on a team where they could be the number 1, they would be a number 1. But nobody's going to see them as that because of who they play with Addison with Jefferson and then Smith with AJ Brown.
Yeah.
So when you think about it in those terms, it's a really difficult challenge. And we go back to the Soldier Field game last year. The Bears did everything they sold out to stop Justin Jefferson, and it worked. He caught like 2 passes for 27 yards. But Jordan Addison caught passes for like 160. TJ Hawkinson and Aaron Jones both had over 100 yards from scrimmage. It didn't work the way they wanted, but they just said, hey, beat us with everybody else, and the Vikings ended up doing so.
Yeah.
You can do that with this group, and it's stronger than it was last year because now we have the emergence of 2022 6th-round pick Jalen Naylor, who has really come into his own. Last week, he had a career day, 5 catches, 124 yards on a touchdown, including 2 critical 4th downs at the end of that game to give the Vikings a chance to potentially make the game tying drive. He had that 4th down catch where JJ McCarthy did kind of like the Caleb Williams thing where he ducked and scrambled out of the pocket and threw a dart down the field. And he caught a beautiful one on the back line of the end zone. He's becoming a very good football player, and somebody's going to get a really nice receiver in free agency. It probably won't be in Minnesota, but you have TJ Hawkinson, who now that the tackles are pretty much healthy, he's not chipping as much, which means he's actually going to be running routes. And now you're going to start to see some of that effectiveness. Aaron Jones is getting healthier, which, my God, if he could ever just not get
stay healthy.
He's the best running back the Vikings have by far. Jordan Mason's good, but Aaron Jones provides a different level of explosiveness that this team just needs. And if you can have all those things kind of working in synergy, you can take some of the ease off of JJ McCarthy. And Kevin O'Connell needs to start calling some easier concepts, but it's also on McCarthy. He's got to read things faster. He's reading it well, but it needs to tick up a quarter of a second. And that quarter of a second can make all the difference when it comes to having a 15 to 20 yard completion or an incompletion.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about that a lot in Chicago. I obviously cover the Jags too. And we're having the same conversations about Trevor Lawrence here, just the speed of processing and how that's affecting a lot of the things going on. There's a lot of drops, and the drops, I think sometimes if it's hitting the receiver in the hand, you want to blame the receiver. But sometimes I do think it's a timing thing. That second earlier you get them on the run and then move rather than have them having to slow down or come up for the ball. And those things factor into everything, especially in offenses like I think Kevin O'Connell run and now Ben Johnson run, and some of these more intricate offenses. It's really important what the timing of everything, where the steps are where you are on the hash, where the ball's coming out, all of those things. When you talk about the line, you said the tackles are getting healthy. That has been a thing for Minnesota this year, is the offensive line injuries and how that's affected things. So chat a little bit about that and where they are in that health progress and where they are in general when you feel like when they're healthy.
There's a non-zero chance that they finally get to play their starting five that they wanted to come into the year with. Ryan Kelly has missed the last 5 games with a concussion. I don't know if it's 2 concussions or if it's an elongated one where he still passed the protocol, because that is a possibility where you can pass the protocol and it's still not 100%, and it's a lot easier to re-aggravate it because head injuries are just weird. Yeah. But Kelly just had his practice window activated on Wednesday. He has a new helmet, which is designed to distribute impact more and prevent concussions. Christian Darrisaw, after he had a couple concussions in 2022, switched to that helmet, has had no issues since. And he apparently is also going to be wearing a Guardian cap. So if he does return on Sunday, look, Blake Brandel's been fine. He is one of the best success stories of the Minnesota Vikings over the past 5 years. He was a 6th-round left tackle pick out of Oregon State. And he just did not have the juice to be able to kick out on the outside and stop a lot of these speed rushers. But you put him inside, and he's a very solid player. And now we can play all 5 positions at a high level. He is the most versatile backup offensive lineman in the league, in my opinion. But he probably isn't a long-term starter. He's a guy you can trust in like a 4 or 5 game stretch. And he had never played center in college or the NFL until this year. And he played relatively well, only like 1 or 2 rough snaps. So if he ends up playing, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But if Ryan Kelly plays, that could elevate this team to a different level because of how he's able to control things at the line of scrimmage, take that ease off of McCarthy. And he and Will Fries, the right guard, have played together for quite a bit. And that'll give Fries a little bit more of a, I know I can trust the guy to my left no matter what, because I've had that experience with him, and that in turn could help his game. But they allowed 16 pressures against the Ravens on Sunday on 48 dropbacks. But when you looked at how long it took those pressures to come, like Donovan Jackson allowed 5, but their average time to pressure is like 3.14 seconds. They're not getting really, really fast pressure a lot of the time. They're getting pressure because Kevin O'Connell loves to attack the intermediate levels of the field. Yeah. So when it comes to the Bears, that's probably what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to do some simulated pressures, and you're going to want to just stay relentless. If you can do that, you can get to McCarthy.
Yeah, they haven't had the best year, obviously, in the pass rush, but I do think that Dennis Allen in the last several weeks has found ways to try and manufacture stuff. CJ Gardner-Johnson, adding him to the roster because Kyler Gordon's been hurt, has helped. He has 3.5 sacks in his 2 games that he's been here. So that's something that they're able to kind of work with. Javon Dexter started to get a little bit more pressure. So some of those guys, Montez Sweat, honestly, has played well the last 5-6 games, but there's nobody across. That's the problem. You're hoping that Austin Booker, who is a young guy, year 2, but hasn't played a ton, and he's been injured just coming back. You're hoping that some of those guys can start to get some stuff going, but it hasn't been easy for them. They've had to figure some stuff out to be able to get to the quarterback. So it will be interesting to see what that looks like. Let's switch to the other side for the Vikings, the defensive side of the ball, because the week 1, if you would have asked me how many times Caleb Williams was sacked in that game, I would have said, probably like 5 or 6. It was only 2. But it felt like a lot more. And I think that's what Brian Flores can do, even on the days when maybe he's not the players aren't exactly getting home. He's able to create so many other issues for the quarterback with pressures and other things that he does. We know the blitz number. Someone was talking about it yesterday. He hasn't blitzed as heavy as he had in the past, but then this last game, I think he blitzed like 70-something%. So he's starting to kind of be like, all right, let's send him if we have to send him, and we'll see what that looks like. But chat a little bit about that defensive front. I know both Grenard and Van Ginkel on the injury report this week. So what do those look like and expectations for this weekend?
Yeah, we'll start with the injury report. Van Ginkel's probably going to play. He's been dealing with a neck injury. If you remember against the Bears, he skied up and got a PBU on Caleb Williams, but he got undercut and he landed kind of funny.
Yeah.
That had until the Lions game when he returned, he didn't play. He only played 8 snaps in between the Lions game and that Bears game because he just felt kind of funny. He got a concussion and then he re-aggravated kind of a neck thing that he was dealing with in training camp. Just a rough deal, and you saw the impact that he had when he was out. Van Ginkel is one of the better edge rushers in football. You just don't necessarily think about him that way because he's such a versatile weapon. But what it allows the Vikings to do is, especially with Dallas Turner as that third edge rusher, they do a ton of simulated pressures, and they like to just mess with you. Grenard is going to be the one to watch, though. He hurt his shoulder. I thought he tore his pec because when he dove out to get to Lamar Jackson, and it looked like he landed flat on his chest, and I thought his arm kind of pulled a little bit. Nope, just a minor shoulder injury, and he may play on Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God, he's the best defensive player we have. But one of the tough parts about pressure, and I talk about this with Brian Flores all the time, you can't just look at blitz rates because to him, sending 5 is just bog standard. We're going to send 5. And against the Bears, what they did was they had the 2 edge rushers and they'd line one of them up outside the slot receiver. And then you'd have 3 defensive tackles. That's what they're doing a lot. They're just sending 5 guys. Man us up. Stop us. We dare you. And a lot of teams can't. But the one thing that the Bears have that other teams don't, Caleb Williams' escapability is absurd. And the Vikings have trouble right now wrapping up and finishing. Jonathan Grenard has like 20 theoretical sacks. I think he only has 3 or 4 because he gets his arms on guys and they're just strong enough to wiggle out. Lamar Jackson got out of 1. Justin Herbert got out of 2. Jalen Hurts got out of a couple. It's just absurd how many almost sacks he has this year. He's been incredible, but the numbers don't look like it. So that's going to be a big thing. Can the Vikings wrap up Caleb Williams? I think with the emergence of Eric Wilson as that second linebacker, they're going to do a lot of things to kind of deceive him and use that deception with some of those simulated pressures I mentioned. Wilson will line up at edge. He'll drop. He'll blitz the A gap. And you have Blake Cashman, who's a do-it-all player, and he's arguably the most important player on this defense because of what he brings to the table. They're going to do a lot of fun stuff. And can the Bears offensive line, which is much improved outside of left tackle, been really impressed with Darnell Wright. I was not a Darnell Wright fan, but he has really shown me something this year, and just absolutely taking guys and eating them for breakfast. Just nasty stuff. I love it. But
spinning them around. It's beautiful. Yeah.
I love me a good pancake. It's the little things with this, how this pressure package looks. And the one guy to watch out for is number 61, Jalen Redmond. Might be one of the best stories in football. Played in the UFL in spring of 24. Was signed June 18th of 24 by the Vikings, almost like an afterthought. And he had the best training camp in 24. Made the roster. Earned a starting job by December. And now might be the Vikings' best defensive tackle. He's a monster. He went undrafted mainly because he had like I don't know if it was a heart murmur or irregular heartbeat. It was something along those lines coming out of Oklahoma, but he's a legit dude. But you're going to see a lot of 5-man fronts, 3 defensive tackles, and then you're just going to send all 5. But with those 2 linebackers and the ability to have Turner and Van Ginkel and Grenard too, they may send 5 and send nobody outside of a 4-eye alignment. And they just may send everybody straight up and be like, block us, buddy. And a lot of teams struggle to do that because they just fill all those gaps and they just bully ball you on the interior.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, one of the bigger tests for the line. Ben Johnson said last week that the Giants were one of the more difficult defensive fronts that the Bears would face this year, just because obviously some of the Brian Burns and Thibodeau and some of the Dexter Lawrence, those guys that they have up front, and the line handled them pretty well. this last week. I don't think Caleb got sacked until the fourth quarter, and that sack was on him. But so it will be fascinating to see, because week 1, this line was not playing well. It also looks a little bit different because week 1, it was still Braxton Jones at the left tackle. Since then, Theo Benedet, who's still the weakest link. He has some really good moments and some really ouch moments. So I feel like he's going to get tested. But yeah, to your point, Joe Thuney is fantastic. He's one of my favorite offensive linemen I've ever watched in Chicago. The things that he does and is able to, I guess, even help around him. Drew Dahlman's really stepped up. Jonah Jackson's played really good the probably last 4 or 5 games. And then to your point, Darnell Wright, he's just super physical, but he's also really athletic too. And Ben Johnson talks about that a lot, of the physicality side of it, but also being able to do so many different things with him. He had a quote last week of, with the ball in his hands or not. And I was like, okay, he has some tricks up his sleeve at some point with Darnell Wright. We just haven't seen him yet. So we will see if he starts to pull out any crazy stuff to try and match what Brian Flores does on the defensive side of the ball. A couple more before I let you go. The Kevin O'Connell conversation. I love Kevin O'Connell. I still think KOC is one of the best head coaches in the NFL. I've seen a lot of Vikings fans on Twitter starting to put judging his in-game decision-making or play calling and getting a little frustrated with KOC. Do you feel that at all?
I'm going to be honest. I've actually spoken out against all of that. I actually think Kevin O'Connell's not a flawless play caller, but I think we just did it last night. I had Luke Braun on, and we do an all 22 type show. We call it X's and SKOLs because of course we have to be punny. But there's so many little things with play calling that people just don't understand. And what Kevin O'Connell does, and I bet Ben Johnson does this to an extent too, is he calls 2 plays. He calls a play and then says can, and then he calls another play. And then each play set has an indicator. Okay, if you see the middle of the field open, you see cover 2. Hey, we're gonna can to this play, and we're gonna attack it with Mills in and then a post over the top, because we want to be able to exploit that. That's what is happening a lot with a lot of these run plays. Hey, Justin Jefferson, there's a guy 15 yards off him. Just throw him a bubble screen. That's a can. So even though it was called a run play, it doesn't get executed as one, because the whole play calling thing is a chess match. They're giving you a certain look, like on that 3rd and 1 where JJ McCarthy threw an interception because Jefferson tripped. You had single coverage, and Jefferson had him beat. If he doesn't trip, then he has the inside track. That's an easy touchdown in theory. Yeah. You got to take that opportunity when you can get it. It's not as simple as, you just need to run the ball. Like there's a stat flowing around with JJ McCarthy on 3rd and 3 or short, 3rd and 3 or less, excuse me. He has not completed a single pass out of 14 attempts. Wow. Okay. So why hasn't he completed a single pass? Well, there's been a couple where he's just had to throw it away. There's been a couple of drops. And there's just been some unlucky bounces, and some of it just is, hey, you're a rookie quarterback and you're getting to things too slow. So it's not as simple as Kevin O'Connell just needs to run the ball more, which I do think he does. But when you get to the line of scrimmage, you're changing things because of what the defense is showing you. Yeah. So I don't think that there's a true understanding of that element to it yet. And that's what we're trying to kind of educate people on, because look, so a lot of the bad play calls people talk about, it's just that they're not executing. And it's not that they can't, because Kevin O'Connell's calling the play because he thinks that you can execute it. You don't call a play thinking that it's going to fail. You call a play knowing that you can trust your men to succeed with it. And that's been part of the problem. There was one against your Bears in week 1 where it was just a 3rd and 2. And earlier in the game, they called mesh. They wanted man. They got zone. So they came back. I think it was the next drive or the drive after, and they called a little zone beater where they had Jalen Naylor clear out and Adam Thielen just kind of go up 5 yards and stop right in the hole of the zone, and he drops it. You can't blame the play caller, JJ McCarthy, on that. Adam Thielen is a veteran receiver. He needs to catch the damn football. Yeah. So there's a really layered conversation that a lot of people aren't willing to have. They just like, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. No, it is not that simple. You have to do things based on what the defense is telling you. And what the defense is telling us is sometimes you just got to throw it. And even like last week, there was a 48 dropbacks and 13 design runs. Well, in neutral game script situations, there were 25 dropbacks and 11 design runs, where that doesn't feel so bad.
Yeah.
And I think that understanding in that context is something that I'm really trying to, I don't want to say educate, because I don't think like the fan base is stupid. They're just incredibly passionate. But sometimes, even myself included, we overlook some things that we shouldn't when we have these conversations. And that's what I'm trying to reach out, because I agree with you. I think Kevin O'Connell is one of the best play callers in the league. And even though he gets a little stubborn and he wants to continue to attack down the field, but like it works.
Yeah. It worked with Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Well, he, as a head coach, he is 38-22.
Yeah.
Are you really going to tell him that he's wrong?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. He's 38-22 as a head coach.
Yeah.
Something's working. Like, let him do his thing.
Yeah. It's funny because on Twitter right now, I'm seeing the Vikings fans with KOC and I'm seeing the Packers fans with LaFleur, and I'm like, do it, fire him. Try.
Please get rid of him. Oh my God. If they got rid, I would be so happy.
I know, me too. So final one, Tyler, before I let you go, let's talk reverse real quick. The thoughts from the Vikings mindset of how you beat the Bears. And you mentioned earlier about, maybe some of the struggles with Caleb Williams. So him moving and being able to kind of play Houdini at times, and that has been a thing. There's been a lot of things that he's gotten better at this year. That pressure to sack ratio has gotten a ton better from last year. His accuracy deep down the field has gotten a ton better from last year. His not holding the ball and taking bad sacks has gotten a lot better than last year. There's still some accuracy issues that Bears want to see continue to get better. But him and Ben Johnson have this relationship that really feels like it's growing into something that could be really fun. But what is the defensive side of the ball, though? There's a lot of things you can take advantage of. No Jalen Johnson still, no Kyler Gordon still. TJ Edwards has been banged up. The pass rush just really isn't, there's not much of it at all. So what is the talking points around in Minnesota right now about this game?
Easy. Keep Caleb Williams in the pocket. I want to make him beat us from the pocket. Do not allow him to move around, create out of structure, and be Superman. Because the one thing that a lot of people don't get with quarterback play is you still have to win from the pocket. When you can do the Superman stuff, it can be a game flipper. You can all of a sudden take it and, like I still remember in the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes on like a 4th and 14 scrambled around for like 8 seconds and threw it across his body like 50 yards to Tyreek Hill.
I remember that.
That play is still ingrained in my mind. You can do that stuff, but you still have to win in basic structure, and you still have to win by being in the pocket. If you can prevent Caleb Williams from moving and running around and force him to stay stationary, I think it's your best chance to win, because it's the place where he's the least comfortable. He is more comfortable being Houdini and moving and throwing the ball on the run and trying to create and playing backyard football. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is an elevator, but you don't want to rely on it. So force him to stay in the pocket and force him to beat you from there. If you can do that, I think this Vikings defense can get enough pressure up the middle and they can contain on the edges. Which, look, that in itself is a difficult enough challenge. They did not do a great job against Jalen Hurts. Justin Herbert cooked their goose. And if you can do that, it's a complete game changer for you. But they did do a phenomenal job against Lamar Jackson. They stayed incredibly disciplined. Nobody had a run over, like, DeMar didn't have one over 8 yards. I think the longest run was 12 from Derrick Henry, and he only got 75 yards on 20 carries. This team can force you to do things that you aren't the most comfortable with. And if you can force Caleb Williams to only stay in the pocket, I think that's your best shot. I did not think that Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams would be a good match. I'm less convinced now, but I'm still a little, how good of a match can this be? And I think my thought process there is shifted, because I think he's done a much better job of maximizing what Caleb Williams is as a player than I thought he could, because of what he wanted to do and how successful he was in Detroit, because he was so successful at that in structure timing stuff. Not things that Caleb Williams was known for, but they've done a really good job of melding the two together, and all the credit to Ben Johnson. But here's my concern. You haven't beaten a good team yet.
Yeah.
Let's beat a good team. And then, okay, now we're cooking with some gas. The Vikings may be 4-5, but they're still a good football team. They're inconsistent, but I think they're a good football team. And if you can do some of those things, if you can beat a Brian Flores defense without having to go to your default of Superman mode, I will come away very impressed and tip my cap. Defensively, I think this is the potential for a JJ McCarthy breakout game. I don't trust the cornerbacks on the outside. But then again, I had no respect for them in week 1 either. And the first 3 quarters were not very good.
Yeah.
So McCarthy just needs to play within himself, play smart football. And if he could do that, he can really do some damage against this Bears secondary. And I trust the offensive line to be able to hold up, especially I know Grady Jarrett was on the injury report on Wednesday. If he doesn't play, that is going to be another boom for this Vikings offense. So attack the corners. They did a lot of switch release stuff against the Ravens.
Yeah.
That resulted in that 62 yarder to Jalen Naylor at the beginning of the game. But the flip side, they fixed the switch releases almost immediately, and it didn't work the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So how is Kevin O'Connell and his offensive coordinator, Wes Phillips, going to utilize some of that stuff with this? I'm not going to call them an inexperienced cornerback group, but they're void of talent compared to what we expect from the Bears. So how are they going to attack it? I think those are the 2 big things that I want to see from this Vikings team.
Yeah, and I think going back to the schedule, I think Bears, the conversation has been the same. You have a stretch coming up that you can really prove yourself as being, okay, yes, we are a 6-3 team. There's a reason that maybe you started 0-2, but this is a completely different team, I feel like, especially offensively than those first 2 weeks. Defensively, no. Their defense, it's been rough, but I think that's even more credit to what Caleb and Ben has done because they haven't had much defensive help at all, and it's pretty much Caleb's had to go down and score. This is his 4th, obviously, game-winning drive in the 4th quarter because he's had to, because the defense hasn't been able to help out much. But I do think you have the stretch now coming up with, obviously, you've got the Vikings and Lions, and then you have the Packers twice. You've got the Eagles. You've got the Niners. So it's a rough stretch coming up for the Bears. But I do think that if you beat, let's say you beat the Vikings, hopefully, I don't know if you could beat the Lions, but let's say you make that happen and split with the Packers, then the conversation flips very quickly of what this team is or can be. I think there's a lot of things that could go wrong for the Bears this weekend because there's been moments of luck. There's also been moments on the other side where I felt like maybe the Vikings game week 1, Naylor doesn't slip and you don't get called for a PI on that play, you potentially win. And so there's the ifs and buts in every single game of how things can look. And so we'll see what this weekend looks like. I know it'll be an interesting one, and we will chat later too, Tyler, as I join you later tonight. So we'll talk more Bears Vikings later, but I appreciate you hopping on with me.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys want to check that out, Vikings First and SKOL YouTube channel podcast feed, Taylor will be with me. Oh, well, I think you post this on Saturdays, so
I do. Well, they can still go back. Yeah, it'll be
on Thursday.
It'll still be relevant though. We'll be talking Bears Vikings, so they can listen before the game.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I'll chat with you later.
Thanks, Taylor.
All right. Bye.